Okay, so the next thing I'd like to discuss is how to review your account properties and view filters. It's important to look at this now that we've set up the account, especially with filters. By setting some logical filters now, we can make sure that the data we're looking at is how we want it. One goal everyone should have is filtering out any traffic that comes from us or our company. We can also take the time now to add any users we want to have access to the account, along with their permissions, as well as review the interface that allows us to interact with our account properties. So the first thing we'll look at is our account properties and views. After we log into our Google Analytics account, let's go to the top of the screen and choose Admin. What you'll notice first is there are three columns. Those are Account, Property, and View. At the top of each column, you'll see a drop-down. The drop-down at the top of the Account column shows you how to change between any accounts associated with this login. The drop-down at the top of the Property column will allow us to change between any properties associated with this account. So for instance, if we had more than one website associated with this account. And the drop-down at the top of the View column allows us to change between any views we set up for this property. And right now we only have the All Website Data view created for this property, which is the standard view Google sets up for every account. At this time, we only have one of each set up for this login. Then, under each column, we have information and settings that we can affect. Under Account, we can change our account settings. We can add new users in the User Management setting. Just add in the email address of the person that you want to add, and you can then choose their permissions in the drop-down box to the right. Change history, which is exactly as it sounds. You can view any changes to this account right here. And then the trash can is where the trash goes. You have the option to restore things that you've trashed, which is a nice feature just in case you accidentally delete something of value. Let's just quickly look at the other columns for a moment before we go back to filters. We'll go into more depth with both columns throughout the course, but I just want to show you where things are for now, so it's not so foreign later on. Under Property, we have Property Settings and User Management again. Under Property Settings, we can check the property name and default URL. We can also set the default view that we want to load when looking at the reporting interface. User Management allows you to give access to only this particular property in case you don't want another person to have access to the entire account. And once again, there are different permission levels depending on how much control you want to give that person. Then we can even link our AdWords account if we have one, as well as review remarketing. Under View, in the right-hand column, we can set up some goals, filters, and e-commerce settings. We also have the standard view settings and user management again. But let's take a few minutes to discuss filters. Filters will help transform the data that Google is receiving so that it aligns with our business needs and goals. You might remember from earlier that Google applies filters to data before it gets turned into reports that we can use. You may ask, why would I want Google to filter any of my information? And that's a great question. But the answer is this: there is some data that just is not relevant to our business. And there is other data that, if included, can skew our data such that it gives us false information. Let me give you an example of this. The most important filter to start with is to exclude you and your employees from your data. You may visit your website every day or multiple times per day, and by counting your actions on your site, you are skewing your data. Your actions don't count since you are not included as one of your customers. Sometimes you or your employees might be testing your site and thus visiting it pretty frequently. And you don't want to count this data, so let's filter you out. The easiest way to do this is to create a filter that blocks anything coming from the IP address or addresses of your business. And as Google processes your data, it will ignore anything coming from those IP addresses. The first thing you'll need to do is figure out your IP address. And an easy way to do this is by going to Google and typing in, "What is my IP?" And then when it comes up, we can copy the public IP. You'll want to check this on several computers on site. Sometimes you'll have different IPs associated with different computers, even though you're in the same building. And once you're done, let's go back into Google Analytics Admin. In the far right column, the View column, choose Filters. You can see we have no filter set up for this table view. So let's set up our first one. Let's choose the Add Filter red button. And we have to name it first, so let's call it Company Activity. Then we have the option to choose a predefined filter or a custom one. The predefined filters are templates, sort of common options that many people use. And under the Select Filter Type dropdown, we can choose Exclude. Next to that, the Select Course or Destination dropdown, there are predefined filters that allow us to restrict traffic from our domain, an IP address, host name, or subdirectories. In this case, we'll choose traffic from the IP address. And then we have the option to choose expression. And this can be begins with, or equal to, and that contains. This is useful if we have a range of IPs that we want to block out, for example. We should choose equal to. And then let's add in our IP address that we copied from Google. And just click on Save. So what this does is remove my company IP address from the All Website Data view. Get it? And what this won't do is exclude any historical data. The filter only works from this moment forward, which is why it's important to set up your filters right in the beginning. The next thing we should discuss is how to add a filter to clean up our data. An example of this is sometimes a website will show the same page regardless of the case of the URL, meaning uppercase or lowercase or a mixture of the two. And this might take a user to the same place, but Google could interpret those as unique pages. And so say someone wanted to find your website, but they accidentally left the caps lock on their keyboard. Chances are your website will come up for them, and this is a good thing. But Google might count it as a separate page, and we don't want this because then it will show up multiple times. We can prevent this using filters so that the page data will show combined, not as two separate pages. To set up a lowercase filter, let's choose the Add the new filter again, and we'll give it a name. Let's call it Force Lowercase URL. This time, we need to choose a custom filter type. The options are Include, Exclude, Lowercase, Uppercase, Search and Replace, and Advanced Radio buttons. And I'll choose Lowercase. And then we need to pick a field that we're filtering. What we're going to do is we're going to be forcing the lowercase. And there are a bunch of options here, but the one we're looking for is the first option. So I'll choose it. And then we can verify the filter if we want to, but I can just skip that. If it's a new account, you won't have any data anyway, so there will be nothing to verify. And then I can choose Save, and the filter has been applied. At this point, I should mention that it's common to have multiple filters associated with a view, and it's important to note that the filters are applied in the order of how they're ranked. So in this case, Google is filtering our company activity first, and then after that data has been removed, Google is filtering the force lowercase. This could potentially cause problems if you're not looking out for it. Let's look at another example. Let's say we want to filter based on location criteria. For instance, we might only want to look at data from the United States and Canada. Well, if we choose to filter them out one at a time, say data from the US first, and then data from Canada second, this will cause an issue. Google will first filter out data from everywhere that's not the United States. So the Canada filter after the US filter is moot. You won't get any data whatsoever from Canada because of the US filter. So this is how we deal with that. We create a filter with an OR statement. And let me show you. So let's create a new filter that only allows in data from the United States and Canada. So choose Add Filter again, and we'll call it United States or Canada. Then we'll choose Custom from the filter type. And then we choose Include because we want the data from the US and Canada. From Select Field, we need to scroll down the list until we find Location, and then choose Country beneath it. And then here we type in United States, and then the pipe symbol, and then Canada. This makes it a United States and Canada statement. Then we can choose to verify this filter, which I'll skip again. And then we hit Save. So we now have the three filters. We're excluding ourselves and our company, we're forcing lowercase URLs, and we're grabbing data only from the US and Canada. To change the order of the filters, we can select Assign Filter Order at the top of the screen. And then we use the up and down arrows to move the filters around. It's a good idea to explore filters when you first set up your account because, like I said, there's no way to apply the filter to historical data. So it's much better to have the data filtered right from the get-go. So take a few minutes to explore the filter list to see if there's anything that might be relevant for your business. And that's it for looking at the account properties and filters. In the next video, we'll take a look at a couple of things: reporting and sources.